My fiancée Qley suggested we take a short break 2 weeks before our wedding to clear our heads. I agreed, thinking it was pre-wedding jitters. Then I discovered she'd been secretly planning to sell our house and move in with her ex-boyfriend while I was staying at my parents'. When I found the for sale sign in our yard, I realized she'd been playing a much longer game than I ever imagined. Hey viewers, welcome to the channel. We are just starting and your support means a lot. If you enjoy these stories, please consider subscribing and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Conversation that changed everything happened on a night in March, exactly 14 days before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I, Trevor Walsh, 29, and my fiancée Qley Bennett, 27, were sitting on our couch in the house we'd bought together 2 years earlier, surrounded by wedding planning chaos. Thank you cards were scattered across the coffee table, seating charts covered the dining room table, and her wedding dress hung in the closet like a promise we'd both believed in. "Trevor, I need to talk to you about something," Qley said, her voice carrying that careful tone she used when she was about to say something she knew I wouldn't like. She'd been using that voice a lot lately, and I'd been telling myself it was just wedding stress. I looked up from the vendor timeline I'd been reviewing. We were both exhausted from months of planning, working full-time jobs and trying to coordinate with what felt like a small army of relatives and friends. "What's up, babe?" She took a deep breath and I noticed her hands were shaking slightly. "I think we should take a break." The words hit me like a physical blow. "A break? Qley, we're getting married in 2 weeks. What kind of break are you talking about?" "Just a short one," she said quickly, reaching for my hand. "Maybe a week, maybe 2. I've been feeling so overwhelmed with everything, and I think we both need some space to clear our heads before the wedding. Make sure we're doing this for the right reasons." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. We'd been together for 4 years, lived together for 3, and engaged for 8 months. Never taken a break before. The timing felt insane. "Qley, this is normal pre-wedding jitters," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Everyone gets nervous before their wedding. It's a big step, but running away from each other isn't the answer." She pulled her hand away from mine. "I'm not running away, I'm being responsible. I love you, Trevor, but I need to make sure I'm marrying you because I want to spend my life with you, not because we've been together for so long and it's just what we're supposed to do next." The rational part of my brain could almost understand her logic. The emotional part of me felt like she'd just ripped my heart out of my chest. But I'd always prided myself on being understanding, on being the kind of partner who could work through problems instead of creating them. "Okay," I said finally. "If that's what you need, then okay, but can we at least talk about what this means? Are we postponing the wedding? Do we need to call the venue, the caterer, our families?" No, she said quickly. "I don't want to postpone anything. I just need a few days to think clearly. Maybe you could stay with your parents. I know how much your mom loves having you around, and it might give us both some perspective." Something about the way she said it bothered me, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Maybe it was how quickly she'd suggested I be the one to leave, or how she seemed to have thought this through more than she was letting on. "What about you?" I asked. "Are you staying here?" "I think so. I have some work projects I need to focus on, and it'll be easier if I'm here with all my files and everything." Qley worked in marketing for a tech startup, and she did often work late into the night on campaigns. It seemed reasonable enough. "How long are we talking about?" I asked. "Just until the weekend. Maybe Monday at the latest, I promise, Trevor. I just need to get my head straight and then we can move forward with the wedding without any doubts." I wanted to argue more, to demand that we work through whatever she was feeling together, but I could see the determination in her eyes. And honestly, part of me was scared that if I pushed too hard, she might decide she wanted more than just a break. "Okay," I said, "but we need to communicate." "No complete radio silence. I need to know you're okay, and I need to know we're still on the same page about the wedding." She nodded eagerly. "Of course, I'll text you every day, and Trevor, thank you for being so understanding. This is why I love you." I packed a bag that night, feeling like I was moving through a dream. My parents, Robert, 58, and Linda Walsh, 55, were confused but supportive when I called to ask if I could stay with them for a few days. They'd always liked Qley and had been excited about the wedding, but they didn't push for details when I explained we needed a little space before the big day. The first 2 days weren't terrible. Qley texted me good morning and good night, sent me a few photos of wedding planning progress, and generally seemed like herself. I helped my dad with some projects around their house, spent time with my mom, and tried to convince myself that this was just a weird but ultimately harmless detour before our wedding. But on Thursday, something shifted. Her texts became shorter, less frequent. When I called her that evening, she sounded distracted and kept saying she was busy with work. I started to get a knot in my stomach that I couldn't shake. Friday morning, I decided to drive by our house. I told myself I was just checking on things, maybe grabbing some clothes I'd forgotten. But really, I was starting to worry that something was wrong. Qley had seemed off during our brief phone call the night before, and my gut was telling me there was more to this break than she was letting on. I pulled into our driveway and immediately noticed something that made my blood run cold. There was a for sale sign in our front yard. Not just any sign, but one from Patterson Realty, the same company we'd used to buy the house. I sat in my car for a full minute, staring at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I called Qley immediately. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I tried again, same thing. I sent her a text, "Why is there a for sale sign in our yard?" No response. I got out of my car and walked up to the sign. It had all the standard information, but what caught my attention was the date it was posted. According to the small print, the listing had gone active 3 days ago. Wednesday. Day after we'd had our conversation about taking a break. My hands were shaking as I called the real estate agent whose name was on the sign. Margaret Patterson, 45, answered on the second ring. "Hello, this is Margaret Patterson with Patterson Realty." "Hi, this is Trevor Walsh. I'm calling about the house listing at 1247 Maple Street." "I'm the owner of the property." There was a pause. "Oh, Mr. Walsh, I was wondering when you'd call. Your fiancée mentioned you were out of town on business when we listed the property. Is everything all right?" My heart was pounding. "What exactly did she tell you about the sale?" "Well, she said you two had decided to sell before the wedding because you wanted to start fresh in a new place. She mentioned you were looking at houses in the suburbs, closer to where you both work. She seemed very excited about it." I felt like I was going to throw up. "When did she contact you about listing the house?" Let me check my notes. "Looks like she first called me about 2 weeks ago. We met last Monday to go over the paperwork and staging recommendations. She signed all the necessary documents as a co-owner. 2 weeks ago, she'd been planning this for 2 weeks, even before she'd suggested we take a break. The timing suddenly made horrible sense. "Margaret, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Did Qley say anything about where we were planning to move? Did she mention any specific houses we were looking at?" Another pause. "Well, she did mention that you two were considering renting for a while before buying again. She said something about wanting to try living in the downtown area near the Arts District. She seemed to know the area quite well." The Arts District. My stomach dropped. Qley's ex-boyfriend Jake Morrison, 28, lived in the Arts District. They dated for 2 years before we got together, and she'd always maintained they were just friends now. I'd never been worried about him because he lived across town and they rarely saw each other. At least, that's what I'd thought. "Margaret, I need to stop this sale immediately. There's been a misunderstanding." "Oh my, Mr. Walsh, I'm afraid we already have several interested parties. We have 3 showings scheduled for this weekend, and one couple has already expressed serious interest in making an offer." I thanked Margaret and hung up, my mind racing. I tried calling Qley again, but it went straight to voicemail. I sent her a text, "I know about the house, we need to talk, now." I sat in my car in front of our house, trying to piece together what was happening. Qley had been planning to sell our house for at least 2 weeks. She'd convinced me to leave by suggesting a break that was supposedly about pre-wedding jitters. She'd been in contact with a real estate agent, signing paperwork, scheduling showings, all while telling me she just needed a few days to think. Why? What was her end game? My phone buzzed with a text from Qley. "I can explain everything. Can you meet me at Café Luna at 3 p.m.? Café Luna was a small coffee shop downtown, near the Arts District, near where Jake lived. I agreed to meet her, but I had no intention of going in blind. Called my best friend Ryan Davis, 30, who worked in IT and had helped me set up a security system at our house a year ago. "Ryan, I need a favor, and I need you to not ask questions until later." "What's going on, man? You sound terrible. Can you check the security cameras at my house remotely? I need to know if Qley has had anyone over while I've been gone." Ryan was quiet for a moment. "Trevor, are you sure you want to know?" "I'm sure. Give me 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes felt like hours. When Ryan called back, his voice was grim. "Dude, I'm so sorry. She's had someone over every night since Tuesday. Same guy each time. He's been staying overnight." I already knew who it was, but I had to ask. "Can you describe him?" "Tall, dark hair, drives a blue Honda Civic. Ring any bells?" Jake drove a blue Honda Civic. I'd seen it parked outside restaurants when we'd all hung out as a group in the early days of Qley and my relationship. Everything clicked into place. Qley hadn't been having pre-wedding jitters. She'd been planning to leave me. The break was just a way to get me out of the house so she could be with Jake without hiding it. The house sale was probably part of a plan to split the proceeds and start fresh with him, but why hadn't she just broken up with me? Why the elaborate deception? I got my answer when I arrived at Café Luna 20 minutes early and saw them together through the window. Qley and Jake were sitting at a corner table and she was crying. He was holding her hand, speaking in low, urgent tones. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language told the story. I walked in and sat down at a table across the cafe where I could see them, but they couldn't see me. I ordered a coffee and waited. "I can't do this anymore," I heard Qley say to Jake. "He's going to figure it out. He already knows about the house." "You said you could handle this," Jake replied. "You said you had a plan." I did have a plan. "Him out of the house, sell it, take my half of the money and move in with you." But I didn't think he'd drive by the house. I didn't think he'd call the realtor. "So what do we do now?" I don't know, I can't face him. I can't tell him I've been cheating on him for 3 months. I can't tell him I don't want to marry him. 3 months? She'd been cheating on me for 3 months, planning this elaborate scheme to avoid having an honest conversation about our relationship. I stood up and walked over to their table. They both looked up at me with expressions of pure horror. "Hi, Jake," I said calmly. "Nice to see you again." Qley started crying harder. "Trevor, I can explain." "No need," I said, sitting down in the empty chair at their table. "I heard enough. 3 months, right? That's how long you've been planning this." Jake started to stand up. "Man, I'm sorry. I know how this looks." "Sit down," I said firmly. "Both of you, we're going to have this conversation right here, right now." Both sat. "Qley, I have one question for you. Were you ever planning to tell me, or were you just going to disappear with half the money from our house and leave me standing at the altar?" She couldn't look at me. "I was going to tell you. I couldn't find the right words." "Here are the right words, Trevor. I don't want to marry you. I've been having an affair with Jake for 3 months and I want to be with him instead. See how easy that was?" "It's not that simple," she said through her tears. "Actually, it is exactly that simple. You made a choice. You chose to lie to me, to cheat on me, to sell our house behind my back, and to humiliate me. You chose to make me think I was the problem, that I was the one who needed to give you space to figure things out." I turned to Jake. "And you knew we were getting married in 2 weeks. You knew we lived together, shared a life together, but you decided that didn't matter." Jake at least had the decency to look ashamed. "I never meant for it to happen. But Trevor, she was unhappy. She said you two had been having problems for months." "What problems?" I asked, genuinely curious, because this is the first I'm hearing about any problems. Qley finally looked at me. "We grew apart. We became more like roommates than partners. I didn't feel the spark anymore. So you decided to rekindle your spark with your ex-boyfriend instead of talking to me about it. I tried to talk to you, but you were always so busy with work, with your friends, with wedding planning. We never had time for just us anymore." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Qley, you were the one who wanted the big wedding. You were the one who insisted on having everything perfect. I went along with it because I thought it was what you wanted. It was what I wanted, or what I thought I wanted. But then I started spending time with Jake again, and I remembered what it felt like to be with someone who really understood me." "When did you start spending time with Jake again?" She was quiet for a long moment. "We ran into each other at a work conference in January. We just started talking and then we started texting and then you decided to have an affair instead of breaking up with me. I didn't plan it. Just happened." "No, Qley, affairs don't just happen. You made a series of choices. You chose to text him. You chose to meet up with him. You chose to bring him to our house. You chose to lie to me for 3 months. You chose to manipulate me into leaving so you could be with him. None of this just happened." I stood up. "I'm going to make this very easy for both of you. The wedding is off, obviously. I'm going to call Margaret Patterson and tell her the house sale is off too. You have until Sunday to move your things out. After that, I'm changing the locks." "Trevor, wait," Qley said, reaching for my arm. "What about the deposits? The venue, the caterer, the flowers? What about them? We'll lose thousands of dollars." I stared at her. "Qley, you were planning to steal half the value of our house. You were planning to leave me at the altar. You were planning to disappear with another man, and you're worried about losing some wedding deposits." "I wasn't going to leave you at the altar. I was going to tell you before the wedding." "When? The night before? The morning of? When exactly were you planning to tell me?" She didn't answer. "You know what?" I said. "Keep the deposits. Consider it my wedding gift to you." "But I'm keeping the house, since I'm the one who's been faithfully paying the mortgage while you've been planning your escape." I walked out of the cafe and drove straight to Margaret Patterson's office. I explained the situation as diplomatically as I could, and she was understanding about taking the house off the market. She mentioned that she'd been in real estate for 20 years and had seen her share of relationship drama, but she'd never seen someone try to sell a house behind their partner's back while planning a wedding. Next, I called our wedding venue. The manager, Patricia Williams, 42, was surprisingly sympathetic when I explained that the wedding was off due to infidelity. She mentioned that their contract had a clause about cancellations due to acts of betrayal, and that while we'd lose our deposit, we wouldn't be charged for the full amount. I spent the rest of the afternoon calling vendors, canceling services, and trying to notify our guests. It was humiliating and exhausting, but also oddly liberating. The first time in months, I felt like I was in control of my own life. My parents were shocked but supportive when I told them what had happened. My mom cried, my dad wanted to drive to the cafe and have words with Jake, and both of them assured me I was better off without Qley. "I'm proud of you for handling this with such dignity," my mom said. "You could have caused a scene, but you took the high road." "I don't feel very dignified," I admitted. "I feel like an idiot for not seeing it coming." "You loved her," my dad said. "Love makes us trust people even when maybe we shouldn't. That's not your fault." By Sunday evening, Qley had moved out. She left her key on the kitchen counter along with a note that said, "I'm sorry," and nothing else. I walked through our house, our home, and felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. The sadness was obvious, but the relief surprised me. I realized I'd been feeling tense and anxious for months without understanding why. Now I knew it was because some part of me had sensed that something was wrong, even when I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Ryan came over that night with pizza and beer, and we sat on my couch watching baseball and not talking about anything important. It was exactly what I needed. You know what the crazy part is? I said during the 7th inning stretch. What? I think I'm going to be okay, better than okay actually. I think I'm going to be happy. Ryan smiled. You deserve to be happy, man. You deserve someone who wants to be with you, not someone who's looking for an escape route. 3 months later, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Jake. Hey man, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that Qley and I broke up. She was cheating on me too. I thought you should know that you dodged a bullet. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. I didn't need his validation or his apology. I'd already moved on. I never did find out if Qley would have actually gone through with the wedding or if she would have found a way to call it off at the last minute. But I realized it didn't matter. What mattered was that I'd learned something important about myself. I was strong enough to handle betrayal, smart enough to recognize manipulation, and brave enough to start over. The house feels different now. It's mine in a way it never was when we shared it. I've redecorated, rearranged the furniture, and made it into a space that reflects who I am rather than who we were together. I've started dating again, slowly and carefully, but with an appreciation for honesty and communication that I never had before. Sometimes people ask me if I'm bitter about what happened, if I regret the time I spent with Qley. The answer is no. I'm grateful, actually. She taught me what I don't want in a partner, and more importantly, she taught me what I do want. Someday, when I meet the right person, I'll be ready for them in a way I never was before. And that person will never have to worry about me taking a break to figure out my feelings, because I'll know exactly what I want and I'll have the courage to say it. That's worth more than any wedding could have been.